You can handle stones in sew-on settings just as if they were beads. I've already strung 4 of these marquee-shaped stones on a thread, and they're in a what's called a sew-on setting. So there's holes at the top and holes at the bottom. This group is a combination of pearls, pear shapes, and marquee. And again, they're just threaded on the thread like they were beads. And we're going to handle them just like beads. The stones have 2 sets of holes that you can sew through. And this is very handy to thread them on one so that you can arrange them either in a, on a line or around a circle. That helps to hold them in place before you do the other sewing with the needle and thread. Now initially it's the same beginning stitch 1, 2, 3, but it's a little fiddly to get the feel of the stones to get them in place. And this I kind of tried to at the beginning make a little pattern of where the dots are for the holes and stitches. In this case I was just trying to hold it up. It's much better to lay them out on paper, make a little pattern, and trace it on your fabric. Here, then I put just a little locking stitch, an extra stitch to hold it in place while I go after another one. If you were putting a bead between there, you wouldn't need to do that. But because I'm not, I need to put an extra little stitch right there. So these 4 pieces are going to end up making a circle. And I kind of know exactly where the thread is, well, you can feel where the thread is coming out on the other side, so you just aim your hook for that point, catch the thread, and then once you catch the thread, the stone will fall right into place. Now I'm going to move the stone over because I'm making a circle, so I'm going to make a stitch and then move the stone over it so that it covers the thread, and then I have to move my thread to get it in the right placement, so when I put this one up it'll make a circle. And you can see where it is now, it's not quite right. I need to move a little bit to the left. So I'm going to make one more little stitch, and then I can put that stone right in place. And as I move to the next one, I'm going to stitch either alongside this particular stone or move it out of the way and stitch underneath it, so that, like I just pushed it there, so that I can have my thread where I need it to be to line up to the next stone. And every once in a while when the stone tips, you can see the 2 dark spots. Those are the openings in the settings for sewing them on. And I just picked one edge to run a thread through. Now sometimes you can try to put the hook through one of those, but sometimes the stone is in the way and it's just not worth the hassle trying to do that. So I'll just finish that off. We'll come back to that later. When doing a circular situation, in this case where I have a bead between each one or a pearl, I don't need to take the extra stitch. The pearl will hold it in place. And normally I would have a little drawn circle with dots or lines where I want the stones to be, so that I can make sure it stays even and symmetrical. I'm just eyeballing this one because I've done enough of these that I can, but I wouldn't recommend eyeballing. I would normally thread them all up and sort of place them on a piece of paper, mark where the stones need to be, so you have a perimeter of the circle that you're going to stitch on. And then that makes sure everything comes out even and evenly spaced. And I generally, when I'm doing a bunch of these on a design, I will make up a pattern for each circle so that I know exactly where to start stitching, and I don't even have to think about it. I just follow the line and everything falls into place. But eyeballing this one didn't come out too bad. So there we are at the last one. I'm going to make a finishing stitch, 1, 2, and there's my 3. Now to secure the rest of these, we're going to straighten them out and organize them a little bit with stitching on the front. Now you see where the little prongs are holding the stones in place. Those tell you that the holes where the thread can go through are just next to those prongs. So you can always use the prong as a guide to know where to bring the needle up. So there's the hole is right there. So I'm going to push that through on a diagonal through the fabric, and then come up on the other side, and you see how that secures it right in place. the first line of stitching that you did with the hook just helps to hold them so that you can fine-tune their position. There's the prong, so that the hole for stitching is right next to it, and all sew-on stones are set up that way as well. So now I'm going to move over to the next one, and I'm just going to push that into place, push it, stitch it down, go into the inside, stitch that edge down, and if I need to, I can still restitch the last one and get it into, if I have to shift the angle at all. And there, I just massage that angle a little bit so that now this one will fit in, and unfortunately my hand's in the way. But I'm coming up at the end again and going back down, coming up on the edge there, going down, and then I'll come up on the outer edge and help to hold that last stone in place. And now they've formed themselves into a very symmetrical, nice, clean, round circle. To finish off my thread, I'm just going to do some little teeny stitches, back stitches between a couple of the stones, and then cut the thread off underneath. And once you've done any sizing on the final piece, that will all hold itself in. It's just so much easier than trying to sew those on initially and trying to get them in a nice clean shape. This shape here is going to be even easier to do because it's already pretty close to being how it needs to be. Again, I can gauge where my needle has to come up by looking at where the little prongs are on the settings. And I can come up and go back down through. To travel between the two the stones, I just stitch around the purl so that the thread is not visible crossing underneath the fabric. Keeping in mind that this is indeed sheer fabric, you don't want to see stray threads through the fabric. So again, come up on the outside, angle down, hold that one right in place. And you can massage it if necessary. I'm just going to come back up on one side of the purl, go back on the other side, and the thread goes underneath it. And I'm going to make one more little stitch here because if I came just over to where the hole was, I would see thread. Again, on the outside, down, back down here, around the purl there to move back up to the side here, down through that hole, come up by the purl, go around the purl, one more stitch there to work my way up to there so that you don't have any of that traveling thread showing. It just makes these little motifs so much easier to keep them symmetrical and evenly spaced. And that allows you to create all kinds of designs with these. You could have finished this up with, even with putting it on the thread, a big pearl or a big round stone in the center. So that would be the last thing off your thread. And then you just carefully clip all your little threads, and you have stones.